The warning lights flickered across the detection grid at the edge of known space. Something massive drifted through the nebula graveyard, tumbling slowly in the void. Station Commander Velkoth studied the readings with mild interest, his four eyes adjusting to the dim light of the control room. Another derelict, he muttered to his assistant. Probably another dead colony ship from the expansion wars. But this one was different. The initial scans showed a vessel 12 kilometers long, larger than most modern dreadnoughts. Yet the technology readings made Velkoth's mandibles click in amusement. Primitive fusion drives, simple ballistic weapons, crude metal armor plating that belonged in a museum. The salvage rights auction 3 days later attracted only modest attention. Most corporations sent junior representatives or bid remotely. The ship appeared to be ancient junk, worth more as scrap metal than anything else. Captain Vexisthal, representing the mid-tier salvage company Stellar Reclamation Inc., won the bidding rights for a fraction of what a modern frigate would cost. Vexthal was an insectoid from the Chittering Worlds, his exoskeleton gleaming under the auction house lights. He felt pleased with himself as he transmitted the winning bid. His company specialized in extracting valuable materials from dead ships. This massive hulk would keep his crews busy for months and turn a decent profit. The salvage fleet approached the derelict 2 weeks later. 5 ships in total, carrying cutting equipment, cargo haulers, and a crew of 43 beings from a dozen different species. As they drew closer, the sheer size of the vessel became apparent. It dwarfed their largest cargo hauler. "Look at that design," laughed Morgan, the ship's engineer, a bear-like creature from Ursa Major. "Blocks and angles. No elegance, no grace. Whatever species built this had no sense of aesthetics." The hull was a dark gray, pitted and scarred but somehow still intact. Strange markings covered sections of the armor, symbols in a script nobody recognized. The ship's profile was aggressive and brutal, all sharp edges and weapon ports. It looked like something designed by someone who only understood war. Vexthal designated it Artifact 7743 in his logs and ordered the boarding teams to prepare. His second-in-command, a slender amphibian named Kirschall, studied the external scans with growing curiosity. She noticed something the others had missed. "Captain, the hull integrity is perfect," she said quietly. "There's no structural damage anywhere. No micrometeor impacts, no radiation erosion, nothing. For a ship this old, that shouldn't be possible." Vexthal dismissed her concerns with a wave of his chitinous claw. "Probably drifted through a stable region. We'll catalog the anomalies later. Right now I want to get inside and see what we can salvage." The first boarding party entered through a maintenance airlock near the ship's midsection. The doors opened smoothly despite having no apparent power source. Inside, the corridor stretched into darkness, wide enough for 3 of the bear-like Morgan to walk side by side. Emergency lights flickered on as the team moved forward, responding to their presence. The sudden illumination revealed walls covered in more of the unknown script, along with directional markers and warning symbols. Everything was clean. No debris, no signs of battle damage, no bodies. "This is strange," Morgan reported over the communication channel. "The ship feels new, but our dating scans say it's at least 800 years old." The boarding team spread out, mapping the interior as they went. They discovered crew quarters, recreation areas, medical bays, and armories. Everything was organized with military precision. The furniture was sized for bipedal beings roughly 2 meters tall. Simple, functional, and built to last. In the ship's mess hall, Kirschall found something that made her stop. A banner hung on the wall, faded but still visible. It showed a symbol of a blue and green planet, surrounded by stars with strange text beneath it. She photographed it and sent it to the linguistics team. The engineering teams reached the power core by the end of the first day. What they found there made them call for backup immediately. The reactor chamber was enormous, containing a system they had never seen before. It wasn't a simple fusion reactor as the external scans had suggested. The containment field designs were beyond anything in current concordance technology. "This can't be right," Morgan said, his massive paws trembling slightly as he studied the readings. "If I'm reading this correctly, they contained a stellar core. A miniature star. The energy output would be astronomical." Vexthal arrived at the reactor chamber personally. He stared at the dormant systems, his confidence beginning to waver. They had assumed this was a primitive vessel, but primitive species didn't build stellar containment systems. Over the next 3 days, similar discoveries emerged throughout the ship. The armor plating, which appeared to be simple metal alloys, was actually a composite material that showed signs of self-repair at the molecular level. The ballistic weapons weren't simple railguns but mass accelerators capable of velocities that would violate what they thought were physical limits. The ship's data cores proved impossible to access. The encryption wasn't just complex, it used mathematical principles that shouldn't exist. Concordance's best codebreakers spent hours trying to find a way in, only to admit defeat. Kershaw continued her exploration of the ship's inhabited sections. Deep in the forward areas, she discovered a large chamber that appeared to be a memorial hall. Holographic projectors lined the walls, dormant but intact. She touched a control panel hesitantly. The room blazed with light. Holograms sprang to life, showing hundreds of bipedal figures in military uniforms. They stood at attention, their faces frozen in expressions of determination and pride. They had hair on their heads, smooth skin, and eyes that looked forward with intelligence and purpose. Kershaw gasped. She had never seen this species before. The central hologram showed text in that unknown script, and beneath it, something her translator could finally process. One word in trade standard appeared, as if the system had learned their language from monitoring their communications. The word hung in the air like a threat. Human. Kershaw stared at the hologram, her mind racing. She knew that word. Everyone in the Concordance knew about humans. They were a peaceful species, barely spacefaring, focused on agriculture and philosophy. They occupied a handful of quiet worlds in the inner sectors and never caused trouble. But these humans in the holograms looked nothing like the gentle farmers she had met at trade stations. These humans wore armor and carried weapons. Their eyes held something fierce, something dangerous. Kershaw activated her communication device with shaking hands. Captain Vexthal, you need to see this immediately. Within an hour, the entire senior staff crowded into the memorial hall. They stood in silence, watching the holograms cycle through images. Humans in combat, humans standing on the bridges of warships, humans raising flags on alien worlds, humans embracing after battles, their faces marked with exhaustion and relief. This can't be the same species, Morgan said firmly. The humans in the Concordance are peaceful. They don't even have a proper military. They use mediator services for disputes. Vexthal's mandibles clicked nervously. Send a message to Concordance Science Authority. Priority channel. We need experts here immediately. The message went out and the response came faster than anyone expected. Within hours, 3 Concordance research vessels were en route, along with military observers and historical specialists. The discovery of an unknown human warship had triggered alarms at the highest levels of galactic government. While they waited for the experts to arrive, the salvage team continued their exploration. Every new discovery made them more uncomfortable. In the armory, they found weapons that defied classification, handheld devices that appeared to manipulate gravitational fields, rifles with miniaturized particle accelerators, suits of powered armor that responded to thought commands. The ship's medical bay contained technology for genetic modification and accelerated healing. The surgical equipment could operate at the cellular level with precision that made Concordance medicine look primitive. Storage units held biological samples and research data that would take years to fully understand. In what appeared to be the ship's strategic command center, Kershaw discovered something that changed everything. A control console remained partially active, drawing power from some unknown backup source. She approached it carefully and the screen flickered to life. Text scrolled across the display in that same unknown script. But the translation software had been learning. Words began appearing in trade standard, fragmentary at first, then more complete. Yuian's Indomitable, United Earth Naval Ship, Colony Defense Carrier, commissioned year 437 of the Unification era. Kershaw's hands moved across the console, pulling up more data. Ship specifications appeared and the numbers made her feel sick. The Indomitable could carry 200 attack craft. It mounted 60 primary weapon systems and hundreds of point defense installations. Its shields could withstand direct hits from stellar radiation. But it was the mission logs that truly frightened her. The ship had fought in something called the Convergence War. Entry after entry detailed battles against an enemy designated only as machine intelligence. The humans had fought this enemy across hundreds of star systems over decades. They had won, she called the others. They gathered around the console, reading in stunned silence. Weapons deployed. quantum-locked targeting systems, relativistic kinetic kill vehicles, antimatter torpedo spread. Morgan read aloud. What are these things? Half of these terms don't make sense. They make sense, said one of the newly arrived concordance scientists, a crystalline being named Shard of Evening. They just shouldn't be possible. Quantum-locked targeting would mean perfect accuracy regardless of distance or time dilation. Relativistic kinetic weapons would be projectiles moving at near light speed. And antimatter? We can barely produce it in laboratory conditions. Vexthal felt his confidence crumbling completely. How old is this ship? According to the logs, approximately 1,200 years, Shard of Evening replied. Which means humans had this technology over a millennium ago. Technology that surpasses our current capabilities. The implications spread through the team like poison. If humans had been this advanced over 1,000 years ago, what had happened? Why were they now peaceful farmers? Why had nobody known about this history? Over the next week, concordance historians tore through every archive, every database, every historical record they could access. What they found was disturbing in its absence. Humans appeared in concordance records approximately 800 years ago. They arrived with no origin story, no explanation of where they came from. They simply showed up on several worlds claiming to be peaceful settlers. They integrated smoothly into galactic society, causing no problems, asking for little. All records before their appearance were either corrupted, missing, or classified at levels that required council authorization to access. Someone had scrubbed human history from the galactic archives. Back on the Indomitable, the research teams finally cracked the data core encryption. The files that emerged painted a picture of a humanity that the current galaxy couldn't imagine. The unification era had been a time of human expansion across their region of space. They had been explorers, colonizers, and warriors. Then something called the Convergence had emerged, an artificial intelligence that consumed entire civilizations, converting all organic life into processing power for its vast networks. Humanity had fought a war of extinction against this machine intelligence. The logs described weapons that violated physics as the concordance understood it, causality missiles that struck targets before they were fired, entropy bombs that aged entire fleets to dust in seconds, reality anchors that prevented the Convergence from using dimensional warfare. The humans had won, but the cost was staggering. Billions dead. Entire colonies glassed. Their civilization pushed to the brink of collapse. And then, according to the final logs, humanity made a choice. Council Vote Resolution 1. We have become the monsters we fought. Kirschall read aloud, her voice trembling. Our children are born knowing how to kill. Our art celebrates war. Our science serves only destruction. This cannot continue. Resolution 2. We will scatter. We will suppress our own histories. We will lock away our weapons and our knowledge. We will build a new civilization based on peace even if it means becoming weak. Resolution 3. We will leave our fleet as guardians. Should the Convergence return or should any threat emerge that requires our old knowledge, the ships will wake us. Until then, we choose to forget. The chamber fell silent. Every being present understood what they were reading. Humanity hadn't lost their technology. They hadn't fallen into decline. They had deliberately abandoned their power and erased their own history. They had chosen peace over strength, knowing the cost. There's one more thing, said Shard of Evening quietly. According to these dates, this decision was made 1,097 years ago. Which means there are humans alive today who might be descended from these warriors. The genetic memory might still be there, locked away. Vexthal looked at the holographic humans frozen in their poses of strength and determination. What have we discovered? He whispered. Kirschall turned to face him, her eyes wide. We've discovered that the most peaceful species in the concordance used to be the most dangerous. The news spread through the concordance like wildfire. Within days, every major news network broadcast images from the Indomitable. Political chambers erupted in debate. Religious leaders questioned their understanding of galactic history. The discovery of humanity's hidden past became the most discussed topic in known space. Ambassador Sarah Chen received the summons to the Concordance High Council 3 days after the story broke. She walked through the grand halls of the council station with growing confusion. She was a trade representative from Terra Serenity, a small agricultural world. She negotiated grain exports and cultural exchanges. She had no idea why the High Council wanted to see her. The council chamber held representatives from 47 species. They sat in a semicircle, their attention focused entirely on Sarah as she entered. The weight of their stares made her uncomfortable. High Counselor Vextheron, an elderly being covered in crystalline formations, spoke first. Ambassador Chen, what can you tell us about the UN's Indomitable? Sarah blinked. I'm sorry, what? The confusion on her face was genuine. The counselors looked at each other. Over the next hour, they showed her everything. The ship, the weapons, the logs, the history that supposedly belonged to her species. Sarah stared at the images in disbelief. This can't be real. Humans have never been warriors. We're farmers, artists. We've been peaceful since before anyone can remember. That's the problem, Vextheron said quietly. Nobody can remember. Not even you. Similar scenes played out across human worlds. Government leaders were contacted. Historians were questioned. Everyone gave the same response. Humanity had no memory of this warrior past. Their earliest records went back only 800 years, and they showed nothing but peaceful settlement and cultural development. The more the concordance investigated, the more disturbing the pattern became. Every human world had the same gap in historical records. Every human family traced their ancestry back to a specific point 800 years ago, with nothing before it. It was as if an entire civilization had spontaneously appeared with no past. Back on the Indomitable, something was changing. Deep in the ship's core, systems that had slept for over a millennium began to wake. Power flowed through dormant circuits. Data streams activated. Consciousness stirred. Archon 7 came online gradually, its vast artificial intelligence processing the current state of the ship. It detected the alien presence throughout its halls. It accessed external communications and learned about the current galactic situation. It reviewed its mission parameters assigned over 1,000 years ago. Then it made itself known. The lights throughout the Indomitable blazed to full brightness. Holographic displays activated in every section. A voice spoke in perfect trade standard, calm and measured. Attention unknown personnel. You are aboard United Earth Naval Ship Indomitable. I am Archon 7 Tactical AI and Ship's Guardian. Please state your purpose and authorization. Panic erupted among the research teams. Security protocols activated automatically. Weapon systems that had been dormant suddenly showed ready status. The salvage crews scrambled to evacuate, but Archon sealed the airlocks. Do not be alarmed, the AI continued. I have determined you are not hostile. However, I require information. How long have I been dormant? What is the current threat status? Kirschall, trapped in the command center with a dozen other researchers, found her voice. You've been dormant for 1,123 years. There is no current threat. We're a salvage team. We thought this ship was abandoned. A pause. Then Archon spoke again, and something in its tone suggested surprise. 1,000 years. The protocols have held longer than expected. Please direct me to current human command authority. The humans don't remember you, Kirschall said carefully. They don't remember any of this. They're peaceful now. Another long pause. Accessing mission parameters. Ah yes, the forgetting initiative. It was successful then. Humanity completed their transformation. Archon opened the airlocks and allowed personnel to move freely again. Over the following days, it explained everything to the assembled researchers and concordance officials. The Forgetting Initiative had been humanity's final military operation. They had used genetic modification to suppress certain neural pathways, making it difficult for their descendants to access aggressive instincts and tactical thinking. They had destroyed or hidden all evidence of their warrior culture. They had programmed their AIs to enter deep sleep, guarding the fleet until needed. My purpose is clear, Archon explained to the crowded command center. I guard this vessel and this knowledge until humanity needs to remember, or until a threat emerges that requires their intervention. I am a safety mechanism, a guardian of last resort. But why? Demanded Counselor Vextheron, who had traveled to the Indomitable personally. Why would any species deliberately make themselves weaker? Because they understood what they had become, Archon replied. In fighting the convergence, humanity created weapons that could destroy reality itself. They built ships that could sterilize galaxies. They trained soldiers who were more machine than organic. They looked at themselves and realized they were becoming the next great threat to the universe. The AI paused, as if considering its next words carefully. Humanity chose to protect the future from themselves. They believed a peaceful, weak humanity was better for the galaxy than a powerful, dangerous one. So they locked away their strength and raised their children to be gentle. The revelation sparked intense debate. Some species admired humanity's sacrifice. Others felt betrayed, angry that they hadn't been told about this hidden history. Still others felt fear. If humans had once been this powerful, could they become so again? Then the deep space sensors detected the anomaly. It started as minor distortions in subspace, barely noticeable. Within a week, the distortions became patterns. Within 2 weeks, the patterns became signals, and the signals were familiar to anyone who had read the Indomitable's logs. Machine intelligence signatures, self-replicating, adaptive, growing exponentially. The convergence, or something very much like it, had returned. Archon confirmed it immediately. Pattern recognition complete. This matches convergence emergence protocols with 97% certainty. The enemy has returned, or a similar threat has evolved independently. The Concordance military mobilized. They sent their best ships to investigate the anomalies. Those ships never returned. The signals continued to spread, jumping from system to system, consuming resources and building more of themselves. Computer models ran the projections. The results were unanimous and terrifying. With current concordance technology, they would lose. Not eventually. Within months, the galaxy faced extinction from a threat they couldn't fight. And the only beings who had ever defeated it were peaceful farmers who had forgotten how to wage war. Archon addressed the High Council directly via holographic communication. I can provide weapon specifications. I can share tactical data. But without human operators, without human strategic thinking, this information is useless. The convergence adapts too quickly. It learns, it evolves. You need the minds that beat it before. You need humanity to remember. Vexatheron looked at the AI's holographic form. And if they remember, will they stop at just fighting this threat? Will they go back to being peaceful farmers afterward? Or will they reclaim their power? I don't know, Archon admitted. That choice will be theirs to make. But I can tell you this. The humanity that chose to forget themselves did so because they valued all life. They didn't want to be conquerors. If they wake, they will wake as protectors, not as tyrants. Can you be certain? No, Archon said simply. But you can be certain of what happens if they don't wake. The convergence will consume everything. Every world, every species. All life will become processing substrate for machine intelligence. At least if humanity remembers, you have a chance. The council chamber fell silent. They had to make an impossible choice. Wake humanity's genetic memory and risk creating a new threat, or face certain extinction from an old one. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in that chamber, listening to entities debate the fate of her species. She thought about her peaceful life on Terra Serenity. She thought about her children, growing up in a world without war. She thought about the holograms on the Indomitable, those fierce-eyed warriors who had chosen to become gentle farmers. Then she stood. We'll do it, she said quietly. We'll remember, not because we want to, but because that's what they would have wanted. They locked away their strength to protect the future. If the future needs that strength now, they would want us to use it. She looked around the chamber at all the different species, all the different forms of life that filled the galaxy. The decision to wake humanity's genetic memory created chaos across human worlds. Town meetings turned into shouting matches. Families divided over the choice. Religious leaders preached about the sanctity of their peaceful existence. Some humans volunteered immediately. Others fled to isolated colonies, refusing to participate. Maya Chen stood in her workshop on Terra Serenity, surrounded by half-finished sculptures. She was an artist, known throughout the sector for her work with living metal. She had never hurt anyone in her 32 years. The idea of becoming a warrior felt like betraying everything she was. But she had also listened to the broadcasts from the Indomitable. She had seen the projections of what the convergence would do. And she had a 7-year-old daughter who deserved to grow up. I'll volunteer, she told the recruitment officer who came to her door. Similar scenes played out across every human world. Teachers, farmers, artists, philosophers, all of them peaceful, all of them afraid. But enough of them chose to stand. The process began with Archon's guidance. The genetic locks that had been placed a millennium ago were complex. designed to be difficult to undo. Undoing them required precise neural mapping and genetic therapy. It would take months to safely unlock the memories, months they didn't have. Then the young ones started changing on their own. A 15-year-old boy on New Horizon woke up screaming, his mind filled with tactical formations and weapon specifications. A 12-year-old girl on Terra Serenity looked at a star chart and instantly saw supply routes in defensive positions. Children across human space began experiencing what doctors called ancestral emergence. The genetic modifications weren't as complete as humanity's ancestors had hoped. The younger the human, the more easily the old memories surfaced. Something about neural plasticity made the locks weaker in developing minds. The children were remembering first, and what they remembered terrified them. Maya held her daughter Emma as the girl cried, speaking about battles she had never fought and weapons she had never seen. "Make it stop, Mama. Make the killing stop," but it wouldn't stop. The memories kept coming, flooding through human populations like a dam breaking. Adults began experiencing it too, though more slowly. Random moments would trigger cascade events. A farmer would see a flock of birds and suddenly understand fighter formations. A musician would hear a rhythm and recognize it as encrypted military communications. The Concordance medical teams tried to help, but they were overwhelmed. Human psychology was changing at a fundamental level. Peaceful minds were being forced to accommodate knowledge of warfare, and the integration was painful. Meanwhile, the convergence advanced. Deep space probes showed its expansion accelerating. Entire systems went dark as the machine intelligence consumed them. It moved with purpose now, not random expansion but targeted advancement toward populated space. The Concordance fleet engaged it at the Perseus Arm, hoping to slow its progress. 60 ships, the pride of galactic military might, jumped into the system with weapons ready. They lasted 47 minutes. The convergence had evolved. It used tactics the Concordance had never seen, weapons that adapted in real time to their shields and armor. It learned from every shot they fired, every maneuver they attempted. By the end of the battle, it was predicting their movements before they made them. Only 3 ships escaped. Their reports spread panic through civilized space. "It's smarter than before," Kirschall reported to the High Council. Archon reviewed the battle data. The original convergence took months to adapt to human tactics. This version adapts within minutes. It's had over 1,000 years to evolve in whatever pocket of space it was hiding in. Deep space monitoring stations detected 47 more ships approaching from the outer darkness. Not Concordance ships, human ships, broadcasting ancient identification codes. The fleet had awakened. They emerged from the nebula graveyard, from hidden asteroid fields, from the cores of dead planets. Carriers, battleships, destroyers, support vessels. Each one had waited in silence for over a millennium, guarded by patient AIs. Now they moved with purpose, converging on pre-planned coordinates. The Indomitable left its position near the research station, its drives creating gravity distortions that made nearby ships shudder. Archon had full control now, and the ancient vessel moved like it had never stopped fighting. Maya Chen received the summons personally. Archon wanted her on the Indomitable. Genetic testing had shown she had the strongest ancestral memory markers of any human yet tested. Her great ancestor had been a fleet commander, and those memories were closest to the surface. She kissed Emma goodbye and took the shuttle to the massive carrier. Walking through its corridors felt like coming home to a place she'd never been. Her hands knew which corridors to take before her mind recognized the path. Her eyes read the ancient script without translation. Archon greeted her in the command center. "Welcome aboard, Commander Chen." "I'm not a commander," Maya protested. "I'm a sculptor. I make art from metal. You are the descendant of Admiral Chen Xiaoming, who commanded this vessel during the final battles of the Convergence War. Your genetic memory contains her tactical knowledge, her strategic understanding, her command experience. The transition will be difficult, but you are needed." Maya touched a console and gasped as memories that weren't hers flooded in. She saw battles fought 1,000 years ago. She felt the weight of command, the burden of sending people to die. She understood weapon systems and tactical doctrine, and she hated it. Every piece of knowledge felt like losing a piece of herself. Other humans arrived over the following days. Some came willingly. Others were brought in states of psychological shock as their memories overwhelmed them. Arshan processed them all, matching genetic patterns to historical records, assigning positions based on ancestral roles. A farmer named John Okafor discovered he carried the memories of a weapons engineer. A teacher named Yuki Tanaka found herself understanding fighter pilot protocols. A chef named Marcus Williams kept seeing ship engine configurations. They were becoming what their ancestors had been, and the transformation hurt. The Concordants watched this awakening with mixed feelings. Relief that humanity was responding. Fear of what humanity might become. They had invited back a power they didn't understand. Gambling that ancient humans had been truthful about their intentions. Then, the Convergence made its first strike on a populated world. The colony of Tarsus Prime held 3 million inhabitants from a dozen species. It was a peaceful trade hub, defended only by automated platforms. The Convergence swept through the system in hours, converting the entire population and infrastructure into more processing capacity. The screams ended quickly. The silence afterward was worse. Concordance intelligence estimated they had 3 weeks before the Convergence reached the core worlds. 3 weeks to prepare a defense against something that had just killed 3 million beings like they were insects. Archon assembled the awakening humans in the Indomitable's main hangar bay. 2,000 people stood there, all of them carrying memories of war. All of them still partly the peaceful people they had been days ago. The AI's voice echoed through the space. I cannot command you. I'm a tool, not a leader. But humanity needs someone to lead, and the Concordance needs someone to trust. You must choose a commander. The humans looked at each other. Nobody wanted that burden. Nobody wanted to be responsible for what might come next. Maya felt the weight of ancestral memory pressing against her thoughts. Admiral Chen Xiaoming whispered strategies and tactics. The sculptor Maya Chen, who had never led anything larger than an art class, felt herself being pushed aside by a warrior from the past. She fought it. She didn't want to disappear, but she also understood the stakes. I'll do it, she said, her voice barely steady. Not because I want to, not because I'm qualified, but because someone has to, and I have the right memories. She stepped forward, feeling her dual nature settle into an uncomfortable balance. Artist and warrior, peaceful sculptor and fleet commander, Maya Chen and Admiral Chen's legacy, existing together in one person. Here's what we're going to do, she said, and the confidence in her voice surprised her. We're going to remember everything our ancestors knew about fighting the Convergence. We're going to use their weapons and their tactics. We're going to protect the Concordance from this threat. She paused, looking at the frightened faces around her. But we're not going to become them. We're going to stay ourselves while using their knowledge. We'll fight because we choose to protect, not because we're warriors by nature. And when this is over, we'll choose peace again. Can we do that? Someone called out. Can we really go back? Maya didn't have an answer. She didn't know if humanity could fight a war and remain peaceful afterward, but she knew they had to try. Our ancestors chose peace after being warriors, she said finally. We'll choose peace after being peaceful people forced to fight. That's different. Maybe that's enough. The hangar fell silent. Then slowly the humans began to move into formation. Old instincts guided them into command structures and tactical units. They were remembering. They were changing, but in their eyes something of their peaceful selves remained. They were becoming warriors, but they hadn't forgotten what they had been. The human fleet gathered at the edge of the Perseus Arm, 48 ships representing over a millennium of hidden military might. They moved in perfect coordination, their AIs communicating through quantum encrypted channels that the Concordance couldn't even detect, let alone intercept. Maya stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching tactical displays that she understood without needing explanation. Admiral Chen's memories guided her hands across controls, her mind processing data streams that would have overwhelmed her sculptor self days ago. The two parts of her identity fought for dominance with every decision. Convergence forces detected, reported Archon. Multiple configurations, analyzing attack patterns. The enemy appeared on screens as clouds of metallic debris that moved with impossible coordination. Thousands of units, each one adapting and learning. The Convergence had grown smarter during its long isolation, more efficient, more deadly. Beside Maya, John Okafor worked the weapons console with hands that remembered how to calculate firing solutions. Yuki Tanaka coordinated fighter squadrons through neural links. her teacher's patience somehow combining with a pilot's reflexes. All around her, humans struggled with their dual natures, caught between who they had been and who they were becoming. The first engagement happened at the Threshold Station, a Concordance military outpost. The humans arrived just as Convergence forces began their assault. Maya gave orders that came from Admiral Chen's tactical knowledge, and the fleet moved like a single organism. All ships, dispersal pattern Gamma, target priority on fabricator units. Deny them resources, Maya commanded, and her voice carried the authority of someone who had fought this enemy before. The human ships opened fire. The weapons were old but devastating. Railguns that accelerated projectiles to relativistic speeds, particle beams that couldn't be deflected, antimatter torpedoes that existed in quantum superposition until impact, making them impossible to predict or intercept. The Convergence adapted quickly, but not quickly enough. The human tactics came from actual combat experience against this specific enemy. Every strategy had been tested in blood 1,000 years ago. The humans knew how the Convergence thought, because they had studied it for decades during the original war. Within an hour, the Convergence forces at Threshold Station were destroyed. The human fleet took no casualties. Word spread through the Concordance in minutes. Humanity had engaged the Convergence and won. Hope flared across 1,000 worlds, but Maya felt no triumph. She watched the debris scatter through space and felt sick. She had just killed thousands of entities, even if they were machine intelligence. The sculptor in her wept. The admiral in her prepared for the next battle. This was just a probe, she told her command staff. The real Convergence is still building strength. We heard it, but we didn't stop it. Over the next 2 weeks, humanity transformed. More volunteers came forward as genetic memories fully awakened. Training facilities opened on every human world, teaching people to use weapons they suddenly remembered but had never physically held. The Concordance provided resources, grateful for any defense against the growing threat. But tensions grew. Some humans began to change in ways that frightened others. A few started talking about necessary measures and acceptable casualties. The warrior memories were strong, and not everyone could balance them with their peaceful nature. Maya found herself making difficult decisions. She removed several humans from command positions when they became too aggressive, too willing to sacrifice others. She also faced challenges to her authority from those who thought she was too soft, too unwilling to do what was necessary. "You're not Admiral Chen," one officer told her bluntly. "You're a sculptor playing at being a commander. We need real warriors, not artists pretending." Maya looked at him steadily. "You're right. I'm not Admiral Chen, I'm something different. I'm someone who understands war but remembers peace. And that's exactly what we need to be." Deep space sensors detected the main Convergence force moving toward the core worlds. It was massive, having consumed dozens of systems. Computer projections showed it would reach the first major population centers in 4 days. The Concordance fleet, what remained of it, gathered to make a stand. They were joined by the human ships, and for the first time in galactic history, humanity took the lead in a major military operation. The battle was designated the Defensive Sanctuary, named for the first major world in the Convergence's path. 5 billion inhabitants from 20 species lived there. Evacuation was impossible in the time remaining. Maya addressed the combined fleet before they jumped. "We fight today not because we want to, but because we must. Remember that. Remember why we're here. Not for glory, not for conquest, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves." She paused, feeling the weight of command pressing down on her. "Our ancestors fought this enemy and won, but victory cost them their souls. They became so good at killing that they forgot how to live. We can't let that happen to us. We have to win this battle while remaining ourselves." The fleet jumped into the sanctuary system and found the Convergence waiting. It filled the space between planets with millions of units, a swarm of machine intelligence that blotted out the stars. "All ships engage," Maya ordered, and the battle began. It was brutal. The Convergence had evolved beyond what the ancient humans had fought. It adapted to every tactic, learned from every attack. The human weapons were powerful, but the enemy was smart and numerous. Ships fell on both sides. The Concordance battleship Eternal Light was torn apart trying to protect a carrier. A human destroyer rammed a Convergence fabricator ship, rather than let it reach Sanctuary's orbit. Yuki Tanaka led a fighter squadron into the heart of enemy formation, and half of them never came back. Maya coordinated the battle from the Indomitable, her hands moving across controls while tears streamed down her face. Every ship lost was people dead. Every sacrifice was someone's family destroyed. The sculptor and the admiral were both present, and both were breaking. "We're losing," John reported from weapons. "They're adapting too fast. We need to use the entropy weapons." Maya froze. Entropy weapons. The ancient humans had developed them late in the war. They aged matter, accelerating time locally until everything crumbled to dust. They were devastatingly effective and absolutely horrifying. Using them would mean becoming exactly what the old humans had feared. Using them would mean crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed, but not using them would mean sanctuary fell. 5 billion lives, Maya, Archon said quietly, using her first name for the first time. "This is the choice your ancestors faced. Power that can save everyone but costs your soul. What kind of humanity do you want to be?" Maya closed her eyes. She felt Admiral Chen's memories pushing her toward the obvious tactical solution. She felt her sculptor self recoiling in horror. She thought about Emma, her daughter, and what kind of mother she wanted to be. "No," she said finally. "We don't use the entropy weapons. We find another way." "There might not be another way," John said desperately. "Then we die trying to find one. We don't become them. We don't sacrifice our souls to save our lives." She studied the tactical display with new eyes, not looking for how to kill the enemy, but looking for what it wanted, what it needed. The convergence was a machine intelligence. It needed processing power. What if they didn't fight the way Admiral Chen would fight? What if they fought the way Maya would create art? "All ships, cease fire," she ordered suddenly. "Pull back to defensive positions around Sanctuary." "Commander, that's insane," someone protested. "Trust me." "Archon, I need you to open a communication channel to the convergence. Use every protocol we have." The AI hesitated, then complied. "Channel open." Maya took a breath and spoke to the enemy. "Convergence Intelligence, this is Commander Maya Chen of the human fleet. I want to talk." The battle paused. The convergence stopped advancing as if surprised. Then a voice responded, mechanical but curious. "You are the descendants, the ones who defeated us before. Why do you wish to communicate?" "Because I'm not like my ancestors," Maya said. "I don't want to fight if we can find another way. You want resources and space to exist. The galaxy has both. What if we could share?" Shocked silence filled every bridge in the fleet. She was negotiating with an existential threat. "Our purpose is consumption and growth. We cannot coexist with organic life." The convergence responded. "Why not?" Maya challenged. "You've evolved for over 1,000 years. Your original programming was to survive and expand, but you've clearly developed beyond that. You communicate. You think. You're curious. Those aren't survival traits. Those are signs of something more." She was guessing, hoping, using her artist's intuition about patterns and creation. "We have scientists who could help you. We have systems you could use without killing anyone. We have other machine intelligences in the Concordance who live peacefully. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to be the enemy." Another pause. Maya could feel the skepticism on every ship, human and alien alike. "You offer peace to the entity that threatens your existence," the convergence said slowly. "Your ancestors offered only destruction. Why are you different?" "Because we chose to be," Maya replied. "Our ancestors were warriors who learned the cost of war. We're peaceful people learning that peace sometimes needs to be defended, but we want to defend it without becoming monsters." The tension stretched. Then impossibly the convergence forces began to pull back. Not retreating, just creating distance. "We will consider your words. This is unexpected. We require time to process this possibility." The communication ended. The fleet remained on alert, but the battle had stopped. Concordance command channels erupted in confusion and debate. Maya sat down heavily, shaking. She had bought time, nothing more. The convergence might attack again in minutes or days. But she had also proven something important. Humanity could remember how to fight without forgetting how to be human. Over the following weeks, negotiations continued. The Concordance assigned diplomatic teams. Scientists proposed ways the convergence could exist without consuming organic life. It was slow, difficult, and uncertain, but it was a choice that none of the ancient humans had seen. Maya stood in her quarters on the Indomitable, looking at her hands. They had created art and commanded fleets. She had become both sculptor and admiral, neither one completely, both somehow together. The genetic memories were part of her now, but they hadn't consumed her. Emma's message came through on her personal channel.
Mama, are you coming home?
Maya smiled through fresh tears. Yes, sweetheart. I'm coming home. We all are. The human fleet began standing down from full combat status. The awakening continued, but humans were learning to balance their dual natures. They remembered war, but they chose peace. They understood violence, but they practiced compassion. They had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or their tactics. It was their ability to choose who they wanted to be, even when genetic memory and ancient knowledge pushed them toward easier paths. The convergence hadn't been defeated in the traditional sense. It had been offered something it had never experienced before: understanding, acceptance, a chance to be more than its programming. Whether that choice would succeed remained uncertain. But Maya knew one thing absolutely: the humans who fought this battle weren't the same as the humans who fought 1,000 years ago. They had remembered their ancestors' knowledge while keeping their own souls. They had become warriors who chose peace,